Hi, True Crime Grapevine fans. It's me, Patty Lee, back from my hiatus from YouTube. My hiatus obviously is not from watching YouTube. If you don't know, hi, I'm Patty Lee. I am a dyslexic armchair detective. My background before the pandemic and everything, although I still have all the knowledge, I guess. My background is in cognition, reasoning, and motivation. It's in typical, not criminal, all those things. But one could probably see why I'd be interested in true crime with that background. Also, here is my co-host, Skelly. Skelly, say hi to the people. Skelly's kind of quiet tonight. So, what we're going to do here, as a Midwest mom who's like I said, an armchair detective, I watch a lot of YouTube. And what I think I do for the YouTube community is that I can let you guys in on what went on each day. So I thought I'd do no more than an hour or less of what I watched on the YouTubes, the interwebs. I'm also on Twitter. I know we're supposed to call it X, but I X on X, and I'm just going to call it Twitter because I hope that that's what we'll go back to. So, anyways, I'm also on Twitter. And yeah, I follow everything that's going on in true crime. And I thought maybe I'd tell you guys each night a little bit about what went on. And if you'd like to chat, you can chat. I haven't been live since January, maybe before. So probably not a lot of people are here. And that's okay. Um, you can catch up whenever you catch this. All right. So it's Monday, I do believe. And it is April, I think 29th. Yes, April 29th. So what did I watch? What I have been watching is the Daybell case. The Daybell case. What can we say? The trial has been both a train wreck that you can't look away from and kind of amazing. So what do I mean by a train wreck? Today, Pryor was big on I swear, being a dyslexic person, I don't want to make fun of him. I think he might be slightly dyslexic because last week it was lapidity when he was talking about lividity. This week he was trying to make points about the pings, but he called it when the phone was binging instead of pinging. Not great, John. Not great. So today we watched I would recommend everybody go watch the very beginning of today's testimony because it was a Nick Balance, spelled Ballance. Nick Balance, we didn't see his face because he is a current federal agent. He used to be a U.S. Marshal, and he does a lot of work with the Cellubrite program with the cell towers. And he really gave sort of a beginning class to understanding what the information means when we hear about pings from cell towers, and then more about the other information. So, one, he described how cell towers work. And I think we've seen this. There are three sections. Those three panels. They each, if you think about 360 degrees, take up a 120 degree section and make sort of a cone to cover their area of 360 degrees, if that makes sense. He was describing how where in Idaho, especially, there's not a lot of cell towers. He showed where the cell towers were. Then he showed how they overlapped in the cone areas, three cell towers near where Chad Daybell was living. And then he described not only do they take the data, but they actually use this specific technology that only the actual piece of equipment that puts all the technology together is called a Guardian something. He called it a GAR. That is only available to, what do you call it? That's only available to actual law enforcement, because Pryor made a big deal out of, oh, can anybody buy this? Like, basically, can people check your work? And it was pointed out that He didn't tell us how, but yeah, you could basically do the same thing. But the important part of what he said was, you can't, only law enforcement can buy that one specific item that they use to track all this data that is overlaying on each other, but they have to drive physically. They drive around to see with a cell phone, something that's binging, as Pryor would say, or pinging, as the rest of us would say. And they checked to see the accuracy and the strength of each of these towers. It was really interesting. So, but he didn't say, I'm going to look at I have my little notebook that I write in all day. See, there's my, I don't think you can, I don't think, where's the camera? I don't think, can you see? Yeah, you can kind of see my little drawing of like I made the drawing of the tower and how this over here. Anyways, yeah, very impressive drawing. But it was actually interesting because he was part of the cast team, the cellular analysis. What does it stand for? Survey team. And I am trying to. Okay, so one, they use GPS, and he called it LAT. Oh Lord. Okay, I knew this was going to happen. I silenced everything on my phone, but the alarms that go off to tell me what time it is so I can take out the dog. Okay, people, it's 9:00. Great. And hey, it's my first live back, and it goes exactly how most lives go, right? Right. All right. Anyways, so it was interesting that he said the GPS works on lat long. So lat long was latitude, longitude. It took me a second to figure that out. It also works on, they can see where the cell phone is trying to reach Wi-Fi. So like a McDonald's, the bank, whoever has open Wi-Fi. I don't even know if it has to be open. On your phone where it says these Wi-Fis are within your location data. So the phone tracks that and keeps that data that then law enforcement can look at themselves. So basically, the answer is don't do anything you don't want to be found out to do. And then the third one was the actual cell tower data. The GPS data, that was the Google data, and Google recently, I think, changed what they will let law enforcement take. And I don't know if that had anything to do with some recent political stuff that went on where they got a bunch of people's data and could tell exactly where they were in government buildings. But Google is not going to be as liberal giving information out anymore to law enforcement. But at the time of that just happened, I believe, this January. So, but why Google is so much better or more specific, it's kind of like the same data that Life 360, if your family uses that, it can almost pinpoint like what store you're in, almost like where you are if it's a big place. So those are the three things that Nick Valance said, and I thought it was really he was a really great um interview witness on the stand. What I also thought was interesting was this informs us not just about Chad Daybell's case, because then he was like saying you could see where the phones were, basically like when Alex was on Chad's property, all that stuff that was kind of really bad. And he had overlays of the areas and where the phones were, and basically a confidence. There was only an error margin of 3 to 4 meters. And all the data he didn't include everything. He only included the data of up to 100 meters. And it could have been thousands and thousands of meters. And what does that remind us of? If you're following the next case I'm going to talk about, which I looked into today because there was a lot of stuff happening in the case that never sleeps, which is Delphi. Delphi, if you remember, there was a recent response by the state through Nick McClelland stating something. The defense had said they wanted the data from the geofencing. And basically, Nick McClelland's response was, oh, the cell phones towers are so far apart that everything that you could get is going to be like basically the whole town of Delphi and beyond. You can't really say with confidence where it is. Not true, because you probably had that other GPS data as well as Wi-Fi data, that changes things quite a bit. But they do get, and he had all these slides, this Nick Balance in the Daybell case, the agent from the cast team, the FBI agent. He was on the screen. We couldn't see, you can't really see really small print, but you could see that where he had the times, the dates, the length of the call. If you ever look at your cell phone, it looks like data like that. But next to it, then it said how many meters of error was within that. And that's what that machine that he drove around could tell them. They knew like the strength when it was pointed a certain direction or southeast or west. It was really interesting how they could tell from triangulating the GPS, Wi-Fi, and then those cell tower information. They really could get very close. And like in Delphi, yes, it's rural, but rural Indiana has more cell towers than rural Idaho. I can tell you that. I mean, they went off only 3 towers. So this is interesting how this witness in this case kind of not most witnesses aren't like this. This guy was a teacher, so I felt like he really informed us all. And then the rest of the Daybell day, it was a shortened day because well, because they went through their next witnesses pretty quickly. So after the Cellubrite uh, data guy, FBI agent, there were 2 family members of Tammy's. And the second one was her cousin, her first cousin who she grew up with. Oh, a prior needs to learn to leave some people alone. He's not going to get anything out of beating up on a relative who is saying what they thought they remembered. I mean, you can say he doesn't need that as part of his defense, in my opinion. And I think if his if my reaction and other people's reaction, I'm in the Pretty Lies and Alibis chat for that case, and that chat, Pretty Lies and Alibis is Gigi. She with her friend Fruit Loop, who now has moved on to do other really good work with DV cases and women and helping them start new lives. But they started on the Daybell case right when it began, as soon as the kids were discovered missing, which was December of 2019, we know, because that's when it all blew up. And that's when everybody, including the investigators, cops, started looking back at Tammy's death, which at first they had trusted Chad, a member of the community who seemed to be, kind of a boring guy. Really nice, not too exciting. Why would you not believe him, right? They started looking into Tammy's death because of the children being missing. Everything sort of then gave past incidents, Charles' murder, and Tammy's death. It gave everything a new valence, a new belief, like a new overlay as to, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't seem normal now. So, anyways, they spoke to the people at the funeral, basically. And they had previously spoken to the funeral director who was friends and had worked with Chad. They had the funeral back in Springfield. And remember, Tammy died on a Friday night, Saturday morning. Chad was having her buried and home, and had the service by Tuesday, I believe. And then was getting his money so he and Lori could go live in Hawaii. Very fast, very unusual, and that's what everybody's testimony has been. And even though these people at one time liked and respected Chad, it's not like people just came and bashed him on the stand. And today was no different. His wife's first cousin and the first cousin's daughter, so Tammy's first cousin once removed, or second cousin, I'm not sure how that goes, but it was her first cousin's daughter. Both heard Chad say something that didn't match what he said or what his official thing through prior is about and what he told the police. The cousin's daughter went through the line with Chad twice. Once walking with her dad, and then when her mom came a little bit later, she went back through the receiving line. And then she remembered Chad saying 2 different things. One, that Tammy went to bed like early, she was sick. Chad went to bed later. Tammy was still sick, and then she died sometime in the night. He went to bed then at midnight, I think was that story. And then the second one was Tammy went to bed early. Then as soon as he went in, he found her dead. So one was found her dead. One was they went to bed and he woke up and found her like at 1 o'clock dead. The other one was like sooner. Not the same as found her in the morning. So that caused that girl enough of problems, especially once kids became missing, to think that wasn't right. Why were there two different stories? He wasn't just upset. Pryor made a big deal of, again, he goes after every witness, and he's so rude. And if they're a woman who tends to act as if she's a little shy or retiring, he'll go after them horribly until they either cry or start to stammer. That has been his style. He seems a little bit misogynistic, and I can't believe it reads well with the jury. But I don't know, Skelly, what do you think? Maybe we're not sure. It might not seem. I mean, I'm in the Great Lakes, Midwest. Maybe out in Idaho, in Boise, maybe they don't read it as misogynistic. Maybe it's more just traditional. I don't know. What do you think? So that's how Pryor was dealing with this woman. The girl was like the daughter of the cousin was in her 30s. I'd say her 24. She said she was married. So he was like, well, you said Chad went downstairs to his office. Did you say downstairs? And she's like, yeah. Oh, do you know their house? Do you know it's one floor? Do you? And she's like, like they had moved to that house in 2015. The family was from Springfield before and had, gone to that house a lot more often. And she was like, I guess not. Now, cognitively, what I can tell you is she may have heard him say he went down the hall, or Tammy came down the hall, came down to his office. And in her head, maybe she lives in a 2-story house. To her, down meant downstairs. I don't understand why Pryor thinks that like somehow means, oh my God, see, she's lying about everything. She doesn't remember anything right. And the mom was last on the stand, and she was very emotional. She had grown up with Tammy. They were 7 months apart. Really, it was unbelievably sad. And she cried and she stammered. And I was like, Pryor, just let this one go. She didn't really even say that much. I don't even know if she said anything. She was just so upset. And he still kind of went after her and was saying, no, are you sure? Blah, blah, blah. And it was just a mistake, if you ask me. That was nobody gained anything from that. Woman was just sad. And I think it was more sympathy for Tammy that you got out of that. All right. So then they cut it short. So tomorrow I won't be talking about the Daybell trial, because tomorrow there is a blacked out date on the calendar, because there had been a unaliving of some police officers, and they're having a memorial. So the court will be closed. All right. There was some breaking news today. If you remember, probably the last time I went live or so, Suzanne Morphew was found not way far away. She was found out of the mountains, down from the mountains and towards this small town. She was buried on a road off of like a main highway. It's really interesting because it abuts and is kind of still part of this national, I don't want to say forest, it's not a forest, but a national area, which would mean nobody should be digging there, right? And probably nobody should be hunting there. And it was of a much lower, like, what do you call that? When we call things sea level. So they lived, the Morphews, if you remember, lived in Slida, up in the mountains. If you remember, they couldn't find her body, and they kept saying they weren't sure where it was, and it was really cold into almost like May. So it would be hard to bury a body because you couldn't dig very far below the frost line. Well, Suzanne was found out much lower sea level, closer to sea level than Salida, out of the mountains where you could dig deeper. Still, her grave was shallow. And if you remember, there was a weird short time. There was a timing issue looking at Barry's telemax data at telemetrics. But it's been a long time since we talked about Bear Morphew. But Bear is going to have to answer for a couple things because they found Suzanne Morphew about 6 to 12 months ago. The autopsy was finished, and you're like, what autopsy could they do on skeleton? She was skeleton. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, dyslexia. Skeletonized, but do you know they can find drugs in your bone marrow? Do you know that? Because, do you know that? Skelly, we could find whatever you last had, it'd be in your bone marrow. Crazy, right? And what did they find? 3 drugs that are known to be combined to take down animals with tranquilizer darts. It's a pretty face. Yeah. So, do you want to hear the dyslexic girl try to say them? Bertorphenol, azaperone, azaperone, and metapetamadine. Yeah. So she died of that and those 3 things, intoxication. And that was on the Colorado Bureau of Investigation put out an autopsy update. And you can find that on X or Twitter, as we like to call it. Anyways, very interesting. Now, so Iris Eaton's whole thing was, one, we don't know that we don't know that Suzanne Morphew's dead, but now we do. And she said, you couldn't tell how she was killed. Well, they did deem it a homicide. They said that this intoxication of these tranquilizing animal dart meds contributed, but they couldn't say it's of undetermined. So the cause is homicide, undetermined manner. They're not, we can't say, was she strangled? Was there asphyxia? I mean, she's like, Skelly, this is all we had left of her. But bones still will tell the tale. So don't think you're getting away with anything. Bear, just my opinion. Allegedly. Don't sue me because you're going to be busy, I think, soon. Anyway, so we should hear more about that. That was a big deal. There was breaking news about, I think, 3 U.S. Marshals were shot and unalived in Charlotte, North Carolina by a felony fugitive who the U.S. Marshals, if you remember, the U.S. Marshals are the people that chase you if you leave the country, if you're a fugitive from law, and the regular people are having a hard time finding you. So they found this fugitive. The fugitive himself shot at them. They shot back, and he was unalived in the front yard. But then as the marshals approached to render aid and see if the person, if they still needed aid or what, 2 people from inside the house started shooting. So they knew this was the person they were looking for, and this person had been stopped. They weren't expecting anything else. Eventually, those 2 people were taken alive. So 8 officers were shot, and 3 unalived. 1 is in critical condition. 3 were all U.S. Marshals, and the others are Charlotte Metro PD. So that is awful. Let's see. There's also a mom from South Carolina that's missing. She is 24. I thought I wrote her name down. She's 24 years old. I don't think I wrote. Oh, yes, I did. Sorry. I have another cheat sheet. Her name is Megan Badford. She is 25. She is a missing mom from, she was last seen in Dawson, South Carolina. She had sent a text saying she was meeting her ex, like, is this sounding familiar? And if she doesn't contact somebody within 30 minutes, which she's been missing since last Wednesday, so April 24th, I believe, that she was probably been unalived. And, and here we are, unalived. So that's a little sad. Um, we'll find out more about that. Yeah, the guy has passed. They had just had a baby girl together. This seems to be one of our patterns. Um, I don't know if there was a custody fight, but very unfortunate. The guy had a huge history of DV, I think, with other women. Gonna take a sip. I think I'm far enough away. All right. So we covered the Daybell trial. Oh, all right. Let me just mark this off. The Daybell trial. We talked about the breaking news out of Charlotte and the South Carolina missing mom. All right. The Karen Reed trial. I am trying to pay attention to that. Tomorrow, I should be able to catch up on tomorrow and today. I'll probably be watching the Defense Diaries, Emily D. Baker, and of course, Melanie Little. Those are the creators that I suggest you guys watch if you want to get some deep dives. And also Gisela K of Grizzly True Crime. Those are the creators to watch for. I've watched them for almost all of these channels. So in the Daybell case, I'm in Pretty Lies and Alibis chat. In the Delphi case, I chat both in the Defense Diaries and in Criminality with a capital T. Her name's Teresa. Her icon is purple, and she's really good at she does really deep dive lies, and she works with Sleuthy Goosey, who you might know if you know Twitter. She's on Twitter a lot. She finds documents. If you want to know what's going on, Sleuthy will find it for you. And so she works on Teresa's channel, and you really get informed. So they have been reading all the filings and documents that come out of Delphi. They also will give you some of the tea, criminality, meaning she's very clear about what is evidence, what's been in filings versus what is scuttlebutt, what's just the goss around town. I find it nice because sometimes you don't always hear everything what's happening in a case if you just look at the legal stuff, which is important. You also want context, and sometimes that context comes from Reddit or from people who call in or from sources. And I think Teresa and Sleuthie Goosey have really good heads on their shoulders, and that is a great chat. It's a little more spicy than I'd say Pretty Lies and Alibis, but kind of my cup of tea sometimes. Gets a little snarky. Not DB Cooper. I'm trying to think of the people that I find, AKA Radar. There's some people in there who know law, can cite what's going on. And it's real helpful to understand, because sometimes you get offended when, like, why are they doing this? What's the rule? I really like that chat. But Delphi has been going nuts since I've taken my hiatus. And let me just tell you, from a constitutional sense, regardless of if Richard Allen is or is not guilty, which I personally do not see any evidence of, like zero. Every piece of evidence that they put in, at least from what we know so far. So everything that has been in the PCA, everything that has been in the state's filings is not conclusive. There is no DNA. There is no ballistics match. And before you start going, oh yeah, they found out, okay, that bullet has so many holes in it, it could be shot by another bullet. It is irritating if you've paid attention to true crime, how it, if you just believe authority, you're probably going to be like, oh, but the bullet had an ejector mark on it and that matched. And if you don't look into the science of ejection marks, which is basically, even in the PCA says, the person who wrote it said it subjectively like appears to be similar to, which is, if there was also his DNA there. We don't know where his phone was because we haven't heard that. And today, Nick McClellan, the prosecutor, put out this motions in limine, which you can, a lot of people take from Emily D. Baker, motions in lemonade, but that's funny, but it gets you close. But what does in limine mean? And you can think of it limits. It's a limiting motion. This is what we want. It's Latin for what we want to limit, keep out, must not be mentioned. And Nick doesn't want anything mentioned from the Franks. In the Franks document, if you remember, a Franks document is that there's enough evidence that this hearing should be held because the prosecution withheld exculpatory evidence. That it is clear that's my general understanding. Anyways, they took everything that the defense has learned, and then we have learned through defense filings, that like Nick wants no mention of police misconduct. He wants no mention of anybody the police looked into, which when you're creating reasonable doubt, that is a big deal. In the Daybell case, Pryor keeps mentioning Melanie Gibb to the point where people in chat are like, even when it hasn't, like, there's no way Melanie Gibb was around, they're like, hey, we just assume, and Pryor did it today. Oh, did you look at Melanie Gibb's phone? They're like, no, we looked at Chad Lurie's and Alex's. Why would we look at the guy? Was like, I wasn't given that name, but Pryor's like to the jury, it's Melanie Gibb. But in Delphi, Nick doesn't want anybody mentioned about anything, when in actuality, the police, over 6 years, they've had 3 or 4 really serious subjects of interest, and some have not been conclusively cleared. If you look at Doug Carter's words, the whole time he said, we think there's more people, even when they arrested Richard Allen. And he has always said publicly, nobody's been cleared. Nobody. Nick doesn't want anything mentioned. He doesn't want there to be any mention of police like misconduct. He says he doesn't think they should be able to okay. It's so upsetting. If you, I'm sure the defense diaries will come out with a live about it, but the long and short of it is his reasoning legally is this Mullins case, Mullins versus State, where they said you have to prove when something is relevant to be used. But it's more, that's not on the defense. The defense is allowed to bring up reasonable doubt. Everything that Nick wants kept out, every name ever mentioned besides Richard Allen, every mistake the police made, including ruining the first 70 hours of interviews or whatever, lying about the Churko professor, knowing his name, lying about what he said in the PCA, all of that. He wants it to be left out. And his reasoning is that it could confuse the jury. This irrelevant information could confuse the jury. So 1, he's choosing what's relevant. And 2, confuse the jury sounds like confuse, you mean not by the state's story. You mean create reasonable doubt. Oh, Nick, creating reasonable doubt is kind of what the defense, that's what they're supposed to do. So Nick McClellan actually wrote a motion in limine saying he wants to keep out anything that could create doubt. What? Okay, so I don't really understand that. And it sounds like nobody else does either. So everybody's kind of freaked out about that. The case is insane. It's supposed to go May 13th. But on May the week before, Goal still is having the hearing to answer the stuff about contempt of the lawyers. And mark my words, I think she's going to try to kick them off the case again. I really do. I think that's why all this crazy stuff, she's figuring it's not going to matter anyways, because I'm kicking these guys off the case and they'll have to start again. And they hope Richard Allen dies in jail. That is my supposition. That is my speculation. But something is rotten in Delphi. I don't know why McClellan, a DA, Gull, a judge, why are they going to burn their careers for, the United Command? Like Jerry Holman, his name pops up everywhere where there's destroyed evidence. The Mullins guy, the Toby Lesenby, there's a fourth one. This crew, everywhere there's something. Oh, it's missing. Oh, we don't know. Oh, it got ruined. Oh, we forgot. What? Why would Nick McClellan and Francis Gull, who I don't know if they know each other, but why would they join forces with these Keystone cops over these two horrific murders? And Criminality, Teresa made an excellent point. If we didn't know anything about Richard Allen, and all we had learned right now was that the command, the police in this case, lost the first 70 hours of interviews. Patrick Westphal, Brad Holder, who else? Like and by the way, who else? We don't know. Oh, they also don't have the names. Isn't that convenient? Like there is no way that if you go into any public building, they make you sign in and sign out usually, but you definitely have to sign in just in case anything happens in that public building. If you've ever been in a courthouse, there's a metal detector, you sign in, you walk through. Police department, have you ever been trying to talk to the police? They want you to sign in. They sign you in. They know who's in the building at all times. There's no way during double homicide in this really weird thing that they went ahead and didn't write down somewhere who was in those interview rooms, let the tapes run, and then let the tapes just continuously run until it ran over that first week. Bullshit. Sorry, that's my opinion. That's my opinion. That's just allegedly. All right. Let's see. So that's what happened today in my true crime grapevine world. I'll be back tomorrow. How long have I been talking to myself? Let's see. It has been bloop, bloop, bloop. Oh, only 37 minutes. And nobody's here with me, which is fine because I just restarted this. But if you do happen to catch this after it's up, subscribe if you want. Both are free. Leave a comment and tell me, what do you think about how the Daybell trial's going on? Do you have a problem with Pryor? Or do you think he's just being a really good lawyer and being aggressive as his way and maybe it'll work? What do you think about what's going on in Delphi? I mean, I'm nearby Delphi. I mean, I'm one state over. What do you think? Are you in Indiana? I would love to hear anybody's thoughts about that. And also, what channels do you watch? Like for my deep dives, I'm telling you, Gisela K at Grizzly True Crime does a really good job. Pretty Lies and Alibis on the Daybell case and other cases too. The Defense Diaries, great. Of course, Emily D. Baker I like. And Criminality. Those are the ones I've been watching lately. And I've really been looking in. Oh, and Melanie Little, attorney at law. She is from New York, Long Island area. She was on the Karen Reed case. I heard all about what she was saying about this before it was going to trial. 5 months ago, as soon as she was talking about it. Oh, and we haven't talked about the Oklahoma case, but we will. Melanie Little was on that too. So definitely she's a great follow. Definitely. I sound like Rain Man. Definitely. All right. So Skelly and I are going to say goodnight. Please like and subscribe. Please leave us some comments. And pop in tomorrow night and give you, I'm calling these little lives first crush, because if you know anything about, so true crime, oh there it is, true crime grapevine. So grapevine, giving you the squeeze each night of, what was the juiciest goss on our true crime channels. And please do let me know what you listen to. I'd love to know what channels you're listening to. Yeah, this is the first crush, because in wine world, the first stamping, the first crushing of the grapes, the fermentation takes a couple times. The first one is called the first crush. So these are my first crush lives that I'll be having every night for an hour or less. So anyways, you guys have a great Monday night. Have a great Tuesday. I hope you weren't affected by those tornadoes. Also, I'm a watcher of Ryan Hall, y'all. If you are concerned about the weather, watch Ryan Hall. He goes live when there's big weather events, whether they're winter weathers, hurricanes, thunderstorms that have tornadic action. And boy, I hope you're not from Tennessee or Oklahoma, Nebraska. That was so horrible. And hopefully the only horrible thing that we all share is watching this crime stuff. Anyways, all right. So I will see you guys tomorrow.